Bob Newhart may be synonymous with deadpan comedy and impeccable timing, but his move from the airwaves to movie screens shows he was a once-in-a-lifetime talent. His unique comic style brought a fresh dimension to every film he touched, and his foray into voice acting broadened his vast repertoire. As a multifaceted performer, his work has found more ways to entertain audiences. No matter your age or medium, Bob Newhart is guaranteed to bring the laughs. That's why today, we are celebrating his diverse film portfolio by cataloging the top 10 Bob Newhart movies of all time.
Oh, the senator from Rhode Island. Come on. Come on.
Number 10. Legally Blonde 2. Red, White, and Blonde.
I've been stationed on the forefront of all major political and social scandals for the past 30 years.
2003's Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde might not be as highly regarded as the original 2001 tale of a sorority girl who overcomes stereotypes by entering Harvard Law School. But that doesn't mean it isn't entertaining to watch, and a big part of the reason for that is not only do many of the original cast members return, but new ones are added too. So, while Reese Witherspoon is back again as Elle Woods, with her now entering the political world of Washington, D.C., and while Luke Wilson and Jennifer Coolidge also return, a new highlight can be found in Bob Newhart. And that's because in his role of friendly doorman, Sid Post, he's always there to help out our lead. One thing he was unable to help Witherspoon with, however, was any morning sickness she was suffering from. And the reason she may have been suffering from this was because throughout the entirety of filming, she was pregnant, something which had to be carefully worked around.
You're going to get this bill through, Al. An honest voice is louder than a crowd's. Just trust your voice.
Number 9. On a clear day, you can see forever.
I'm presiding here, Croc. You might try to remember how difficult it is to get good college presidents these days.
Adding more layers to his repertoire, 1970's On a Clear Day You Can See Forever sees Bob Newhart try out his hand at a musical. Sure, the singing itself is done by Barbra Streisand and a couple of her other male co-stars, but that doesn't mean this isn't another box for Newhart to check off of his bucket list. And it's not just about the music in this one. No, the story is also great too, as it tells the tale of a woman who visits a psychotherapist in the hopes of getting hope with quitting smoking, but who ultimately finds herself reliving a past Victorian life while under hypnosis. Of course, the title song might be most recognizable to people today on account of the fact it was used during one of the many meth cooking montages in Breaking Bad. And this means the song eventually went from being used in the context of helping someone kick a bad habit to helping someone create a bad one.
Academic freedom means that if you disagree with the administration, you're free to go to another academy.
Number 8. Little Miss Marker.
Just get her out of here. You know, it's bad for business. A horse player sees a kid, he figures he should be home and instead of here placing bets.
Bob Newhart was no stranger to comedy. In fact, this was probably what he did best. And his comedic chops were on full display during 1980's Little Miss Marker, as this was where he portrayed the role of Regret. And in his role of Regret, Newhart had to contend with the fact that a 6-year-old girl he and his associates are given as collateral for a bet might make them look like kidnappers in the eyes of the law. Yes, there's a lot of laughs to be found here. And not just for Bob Newhart either, as the cast also includes Tony Curtis, Walter Matthau, and Julie Andrews, each of whom bring their A-games as the gang desperately tries to figure out what they should do next. Maybe, if they wanted some ideas then, they should have watched the original versions, as this was actually the third remake of a 1934 film starring Shirley Temple. That's right, before the 1980 film came along, there were also retellings of the same story found in 1949's Sorrowful Jones and 1962's 40 Pounds of Trouble.
He's in his office with a very important client. He doesn't like to be disturbed.
Number 7. Hot Millions.
I like tubby men.
Fat. He's fat.
Yeah, well, he's well covered.
While he might have been best known for his comedy work, Bob Newhart could deliver drama equally as well, something which is evident in his work in 1968's crime caper, Hot Millions. After all, it's here that he gets to shine in the role of William Natpole, a vice president of a large corporation who begins to suspect a new employee of his is committing fraud. But then, that's because that new employee, one played by Peter Ustinov, is committing fraud by stealing money from the company, and this leads to a cat-and-mouse game developing as the audience waits to see whether or not he will be discovered. In an interesting trivia note separate from this, though, Hot Millions actually features a rare glimpse of the inside of the Apple Boutique, a clothes shop briefly owned by the Beatles in 1968, and that's because one scene involves Newhart's character actually going shopping there.
Queen's Distillery.
What's that?
Number 6. Hell is for Heroes.
Well, one problem, his vichyssoise taste a little too much like potato soup. Oh, they're supposed to taste like potato soup.
Proving he really could do it all, 1962's Hell is for Heroes saw Bob Newhart dip his toes into the war movie genre. And here, he played the role of Private First Class James E. Driscoll, a member of a squad of American soldiers stationed in France towards the end of World War II. Of course, he really did knock it out of the park in this one, as even with heavyweight co-stars like Steve McQueen, Bobby Darin, and James Coburn battling for screen time with him, Newhart still stands out during the squad's attempts to hold off a German attack. Really, you could argue that while he isn't the headliner, he gives the best performance here. That said, the competition between the actors didn't create any rifts. No, it created a lot of camaraderie behind the scenes. And that's why it was so sad that at the 50th anniversary celebration of the film's release, Bob was the only surviving squad member left, as all the other actors involved had died by then.
Safety?
Yeah, that little lever there, you just pull it. Not the...
At number 5, we have Catch-22.
I'm going to take the rest of the afternoon off and lie down in my tent and think about things.
Often, when a classic book is adapted to screen, it doesn't quite match up, and so fans of it are left disappointed. But this certainly wasn't a problem for fans of Joseph Heller's Catch-22, as when the film version of that one came out in 1970, it nailed it. And it did this by sticking to the hilarious story of a man trying to get himself declared insane so that he could get out of World War II. Obviously then, considering the sprawling cast of the novel, a lot of great actors would have to be brought in here, with some of the best of these being Alan Arkin, Bob Balaban, and of course, Bob Newhart in the role of Major Major. What most people don't know today, though, is that Catch-22 was almost directed by the legendary Orson Welles, as he at one point tried to buy the film rights. When he couldn't pull this off, though, he'd have to settle for a cameo role as Brigadier General Dreedle.
I'm awfully sorry, sir.
Number 4. The Librarian. Return to King Solomon's Mines.
An ancient tome with incredible powers. It's believed that Solomon used those powers to rule his people.
Though never the big hit that franchises such as The Fast and the Furious or the Marvel Cinematic Universe were, the Librarian series has been a quietly successful one for Turner Network Television over the last couple of decades. And the second entry, The Librarian, Return to King Solomon's Mines, might be the best of them all, as it's the one in which our hero, Flynn Carson, seeks out a book that gives the reader control over space and time. Of course, while he's doing this, his trusty mentor, Judson, is there with him every step of the way to help him on his quest. And with Bob Newhart playing the role of Judson here, his natural warmth as an actor gets a chance to shine through with every piece of advice he gives. What many people don't know, though, is that the second Librarian movie wasn't just a star-studded affair on screen. No, it was the same behind the camera too, as the director was none other than Jonathan Frakes, someone perhaps most famous for playing Commander William Riker on Star Trek The Next Generation.
It never really goes away, does it?
Look, don't worry. Just do what I've taught you to do and you'll be fine.
Number 3. Elf.
A lot of people down south don't believe in Santa Claus.
Who do they think puts all their toys under the tree?
Well, there's a rumor floating around that the parents do.
Perhaps the most recent entry into the classic Christmas movie canon, 2003's Elf tells the story of Buddy, a human who gets stuck in the North Pole as a baby and who decides to leave Santa's workshop behind one day as an adult so he can search for his true father living in New York. Not that this father was the man who raised him, though. No, his adoptive dad is played by none other than Bob Newhart in one of his more quietly hilarious performances. And that's because the contrast of him playing Papa Elf, while Will Ferrell sits on his lap as a fully sized human, makes for some great visual gags. So bizarre was it to see Ferrell as a human-sized elf, in fact, he actually caused a few small traffic accidents while filming a scene in costume inside of the Lincoln Tunnel in New York, as distracted motorists were paying too much attention to him and not to the road ahead of them.
Well, looks like we got a short on the thermocoupler. You want to give me a hand with that?
Number 2. First Family.
It's a rock. It's a very nice rock.
Politics has always been an area which is ripe for satire, and it's for that reason that 1980's comedy film, First Family, works so well as it focuses on the exploits of a fictional United States president and his family who stays at the White House with him. Of course, while the cast made up of Madeline Kahn, Gilda Radner, and Fred Willard all pull their weight here, the real star of the show is Bob Newhart as President Manfred Link. After all, with him getting the lead role, he has plenty of opportunities to bring the laughs with his always excellent comic skills. What's interesting, though, is that while Newhart is 17 years older than the actress playing his on-screen daughter, making him a somewhat believable dad, the same cannot be said for his on-screen wife, Madeline Kahn. No, she and Gilda Radner are only 4 years apart in age and reality.
Almost 4 long, hard, work-filled years ago, I made a solemn promise.
Our number 1 pick is The Rescuers.
Never fail to do what's right. All right? Duty calls.
A true classic for children everywhere, 1977's The Rescuers has to be one of the most fondly remembered Disney movies of its era. And that's because the story is filled with so much of the studio's trademark magic, with it telling the tale of 2 mice trying to rescue a young girl who has been kidnapped by treasure hunters. Absolutely everything about this one works, whether that be the animation, the story, or the voice cast. And particular praise has to be given to Bob Newhart in that last area, as he's the one who voices one of our lead mice, a janitor at the Rescue Aid Society named Bernard. But the real lasting legacy of this one is that it was the first hit movie Disney Animation produced entirely following the death of Walt Disney. And because it was such a success, it gave those within the studio confidence that it could indeed survive beyond the existence of its creator.
That's just where I'd hide the devil's eye. Come to think of it, if I was a pirate, I wouldn't hide anything back there.
And there we have it, the top 10 Bob Newhart movies of all time. No doubt you have your own list, so be sure to let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and get alerted of our next video. We'll hope to see you soon!